What's going on, YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I want to do something that I don't normally do on a Friday, and that's a top 10 video, specifically my top 10 most carried knives of 2019. I've done not every single top 10 list that I can think of, but I haven't done one of these, and I've started to think, like, that's kind of an important list, like the stuff that actually makes it into my pocket every day. And when I got down to it, I realized, I was like, this is a weird list. Like, I have a bunch of stuff that I carry like a ton, and then it trickles down, as you go down from, your number one spot, your number two, number three, number four. It's exponentially less, but there's still, to my surprise, some of these knives were still ones that I was carrying in my top 10 list. So without further ado, let's go ahead and go over it. If you are brand new to my channel, I like to do knife reviews, knife overviews, unboxings. I like to do discussion topics, top 10 videos like the one you're seeing right now, and I have a knife guide series on Sundays. So if all that sounds good to you, go ahead and subscribe and make sure your notifications are set to all, because there's definitely more coming. Number 10, we'll go 10 being the least carried all the way down to number 1 being the most carried. Number 10 is the Cold Steel Toughlite. Now, you guys have heard me talk about this knife and what I use it for. This is what I call one of my weekend work knives. It's inexpensive. It's definitely super tough. It's not made out of a steel that's super hard to sharpen, and it's going to get beat up a lot. I also really like the ergonomics. This knife gets used for making adjustment cuts on wood after we construct something. It also is something that I use to cut open bags of dirt or concrete. I will use this knife for pretty much anything. I love the feeling of control, and that lock is unbelievable. I mean, I have beat on this thing, and I've resharpened it, and this thing has really been through it, and it's had a lot of pressure bear down on it, and it's even done a little bit of prying, and I can confidently say that lock is still super tight. This is probably one of the smallest triad locks I've ever seen, and it's reinforced with basically just the steel of itself and some plastic. This is a really tough knife. I mean, it makes sense why they call it the Toughlite. It barely weighs anything. It pockets well. It kind of stinks that it's tipped down, but whatever. I don't really care all that much. It's mainly the ergonomics and the size of this. It's really easy to open, and if I really want to, I can close it like this. It also has never been cleaned on the inside, and I can tell you there is plenty of dirt and debris inside of that thing. So, well deserving in my number 10 spot. Number 9, the Ontario Rat Model 1. This is my go-to knife if I need to break down boxes. And I break down a lot of boxes. I have kids. With kids comes boxes from diapers and toys and there's so many boxes all the time in my house. They stack up, and my wife's like, break those down and throw them in the trash. So I'm always doing that. This is my go-to knife for that. I love the flat ground blade. I love the comfortable position for my finger. I love the jimping up top if I need it. I love that I can kind of choke up on it if I want to. And I love how reliable it is. Those phosphor bronze washers have stayed very, very smooth over time, and it's locked up solid over time. Still no blade play up, down, left to right. I don't have any of the pivot or screws or anything backing out, and it's still locking out pretty much where it was when I got it. This knife has been around almost for the entirety of my channel. It's not the oldest knife on my channel, but it is almost as old as the channel. So you can see it gets used quite a bit. It's also been resharpened. This is an awesome knife. If you've never checked out the Rat, these things are great. They're super tough. I've dropped this and beat on it. It's not the most beat up knife in the entire world, but it's definitely one that gets used. It's also generally the other knife that I couple with this knife if I'm doing projects on the weekends. Neither of these knives get carried during the week. I work in an office. These are my work knives. They're the knives that really get beat on the most. So if I did a top 10 list of knives that see the most use, these two would be at the top, honestly. But in terms of carry, they do get carried. They're just carried sort of at the bottom. Now, I'm not always doing projects on the weekends either. Sometimes I just sit around and do nothing. In fact, if you're like me, that's probably one of your favorite things to do. Let's see here. Number 8 is going to be the Victorinox Cadet. I guess they call this the Alox. This is generally my backup knife. It does not get carried in my back pocket every single day. And for those of you who don't know, what I mean by backup knife is, like, if I'm carrying a knife, pretend that the Rat, just so for the sake of not ruining the rest of the list, pretend that this is a really nice knife, right? I carry this in my front right-hand pocket. A lot of you would be like, why do you need a backup knife? Just use your front right-hand side pocket knife for, you know, everything you're going to use it for. A lot of times I'm carrying a knife that I don't really need a backup knife for, but I'm still a little hesitant about letting somebody else use a knife. Like if somebody was like, hey, can I borrow your knife? Number one, I'm afraid they're not going to understand the locking system and they're not going to be able to anticipate how sharp it is. That's a common issue with people in general. The pocket knives they're used to using have never been resharpened, and they go to use my knife and they slip, or they don't understand the locking system and they cut themselves and they're like, oh my gosh, that's a sharp knife. Like they're offended. How dare you carry a sharp blade? That's dangerous. Well, it's meant to cut. That's actually happened to me before. So I carry this, and no, I mean, this is like an unmistakable style of knife. Everybody understands how it works. Everybody understands it's a slip joint. I do keep this thing relatively sharp. I don't keep it razor sharp, you know. I mean, it's definitely been resharpened, but it's okay. It's about what they expect. They know what it is. They know how to use it. I keep it as a backup knife. And on top of that, if I have something in my front right-hand side pocket that I don't want them to damage, like if they're like, I need to stab into this can of Pepsi real quick because I'm going to shotgun it. Well, you're not going to use my Hinder, or you're not going to use my, you know, really nice knife for that. Here's my Victorinox Cadet. It's also my primary travel knife. So that one definitely deserving of the number 8 spot. Number 7, this is a freaking weird one because I got this from Jeff not too long ago, and he had given it to me, and I only recently reviewed it, but when I went through everything that I've currently got in my possession, now there are knives that I've carried more than this knife this year that I no longer have in my possession, but if I'm making a top 10 list of the knives that I currently possess, that I've carried the most often, you know, that's what this is, knives that I've currently possessed. Technically, the Strider ProTech SNG has been in my pocket quite a bit, more than anything else. I mean, in terms of the number 7 spot, more than anything else that I've currently got. Now, here's the weird thing about this knife. If you guys watched my review on it, you'll know that the number 1, the reason that I'm not carrying it is because it's a rare variant. This is a titanium ProTech Strider SNG. Very, very expensive. When you could get it, you cannot get it anymore. And on top of that, it's number 2 of 40. This was a gift from my buddy Jeff Goodnow, an insanely generous gift, because when you could get these, they were nearly $500, and you can't anymore. So I have no idea, you know. So I want to carry. I love the ergonomics on this guy. I love the automatic feature. This is truly my favorite automatic knife I've ever handled. I love how thick and heavy duty it feels. Mainly, I love the ergonomics. I love being able to get right up here behind the choil. This is an example of a knife that I would absolutely carry with this guy, because number 1, I've not been brave enough to use this knife yet, which is going to get some cringes from a lot of you, like, oh my gosh, there's a knife on his top 10 list, and he hasn't even used it. Hey, circumstances have brought this into light in the number 7 position. That's simply what it is. But I would carry this as a backup for this. Number 1, for anybody asking to use a knife, and number 2, for the most part, unless I'm cutting open a letter or a box until I get brave enough to use this, I just don't want to mess the edge up. That's just where I'm at with it right now. Number 6, this was actually a gift from Harry Gage. I've had this one for quite a bit longer. This is the PMP Revenge. Now, getting into this part of the list, these are definitely knives that get carried, you know, often and get used often. We're past this weird point where I'm like, you know, this weird taper off into the exponential decrease in how often something gets carried and used. These knives from here on are actually getting carried and used quite often. The PMP Revenge is not a knife that I expected to like. It's also the only sheep's foot blade that I have consistently carried. Something about the grind and the look of this, it just makes it an awesome performer. It's also a lot bigger than it actually looks. It looks like it's only about 8 1/4 inches. I believe it's at least 8 1/2, might be 8.75. Let's take a look. Nope, I'm wrong. It's actually almost 9 inches. So that's my point there. I can never remember how big this thing is because for whatever reason, the carry profile just isn't bad. It's also right there in my sweet spot in terms of weight. Let me go ahead and weigh this for you guys again real quick, even though we've already reviewed it. We're looking at 6.49 ounces, not right in my sweet spot, but again, I can never remember. This knife throws my senses off so much, so it's a long, you know, a big knife and a heavy knife, but the carry profile is nice, and it really isn't all that thick. The flipper tab works really, really well. I can do the reverse flick on it. It's a nice fidgety knife, and that blade is a really nice performer. On top of that, it's M390. It's also a titanium frame lock. It's the only titanium frame lock that I have on this list, so it's kind of my go-to. This was a gift from Harry. It was a super, super generous gift, and I just like it. It's just a nice performer. A little bit heavy. I don't carry it every single day, you know, but if I'm wearing jeans, I don't have an issue with it. I've had nothing back out, nothing fail. I don't really have too many reservations against using it, and I've actually resharpened it once. A little bit, more of a touch-up than anything else. What was that? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Number 5. This is another kind of weird one because had I had it longer, it definitely would be higher in the list. I want to make that clear. This would absolutely be higher in the list, probably as high as number 3 or 2, and maybe even gunning for the number 1 position. That's going to be the Para 3 in Maximum. This thing, and it's in my pocket today, this thing gets carried all the time. Oh my gosh, my wife got this for our anniversary for me. If you guys aren't aware, every year my wife gets me a knife for our anniversary. She's not a knife person, but she has to listen to my incessant rambling, number one, because I'm obsessed with knives, and now that I have a YouTube channel, it's kind of like a thing in our house. I'm always talking, and she's, you know, she's doing whatever, going, oh yeah, wow, okay, that's nice. But she picks up this information in her subconscious, and I had mentioned something about really wanting a knife in G10 and Maximum. There just wasn't anything out there besides the PM2, and it was always sold out. I wasn't aware that this existed, and I did not want FRN. I do not like FRN. And she found this and bought it for me, and so pretty much ever since our anniversary, I have been carrying this a lot. Surprisingly, it's taking a really long time. I keep thinking that these little specks right here are patina, and then I end up just being able to wipe them off. Maximum is nowhere near as corrosion prone as I thought it was going to be. This thing stands up pretty well to the elements. I have no issues. The edge seems to shrug off everything. I have been using this knife. There are definitely marks on it, but it has to be incredibly abrasion resistant given that the hardness is so high on it. 66 to 68 Rockwell. That edge, literally, despite everything I've used it for, it just has shrugged everything off. This is an awesome knife, amazing manipulation of the blade and the lock. The ergonomics are fantastic. I switched out the deep carry pocket clip, nice and lightweight carry. This has been a knife that I have carried very often with me every single day to work. It doesn't matter what kind of pants I'm wearing. The next knife, I'll admit, is not a knife that I like as much as the Para 3, but just given how long I've had it, I've actually carried it a little bit more. This is going to be number 4, the PM2. This PM2 is a standard. It's not a CPM M4 PM2. I know it's got the jade scales. This is a CPM S30V PM2, making it just a standard PM2. When I got it, it had those big blocky black G10 scales, and it had the old pocket clip, and I just didn't like it. On top of that, I didn't like, I don't really like how the PM2 looks in general. I've talked about that before, but I can't deny that it's just a fantastic cutting tool. It's very easy to manipulate, great ergonomics, and it's got a great slicing blade too. I just had to dress it up a little bit, so I ended up buying these slightly contoured scales with a diamond pattern. They're more rounded off at the edges. I like these so much more. They're not quite that, they don't have the same peel ply texturing as the stock scales, and they just don't attack my pants nearly as much. And just like the Para 3, this MXG deep carry clip makes a world of difference. It's still not my favorite knife, but I still carry it, and it definitely is better than it was when I first got it. Really, really great blade. Number 3, we're getting up into an area where you guys can probably guess, the Spyderco Mannix 2. This is the most expensive knife that I own in terms of, you know, like, it's not the most expensive knife I own, but I mean, like, as far as knives that I will use that are expensive, that ratio, the amount of money that I have in this in custom parts, I've got the Allen Putnam scales, I've got the Flytanium titanium cage, and another MXG deep carry clip, making this base DLC coated S30V Mannix 2 that comes at like 130, 135 bucks. There's easily another $100, $120, $130 in parts in it, making it a pretty expensive knife. And I use this knife for everything. I have no issues using this blade on anything. It's dirty and gross. That DLC coating has held up no problem. I love Spyderco's DLC coating. This is, I mean, As far as knives go, this is one of the ugliest knives I've ever seen. Just the Spyderco overall look and the DLC coating, but this thing just screams tool to me. I love the ergonomics. They're very similar to Rick Hinder ergonomics, which you guys know I really, really like. Ease of manipulation. Trust in the lock is substantial. I have no worries that lock's going to disengage. I can also do, you know, my favorite type of sort of fidgety movements with it if I want to. It's just awesome. I love, 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 love this knife. Also, of course, the deep carry MXG clip makes that, you know, all that much more enjoyable. It's a little bit heavy at about 5.25 ounces, something like that, but not something that I can't handle. If you guys are wondering, this is a version of the Mannix 2 that does not have milled out liners, which makes this thing super easy to clean. Gunk does not get trapped in those little holes, and I don't care about saving another 0.75 ounces in weight. It's just an awesome, awesome blade. I love it. Moving on to number 2, and that's going to be the Hog Ritter RSK MK1 G2. In my opinion, the most perfect version of the Benchmade Griptilian that exists. What we have here is an 8-inch blade, an 8-inch overall knife with a 3.5-inch blade, about 3.4-inch cutting edge. The grind on this is just perfect for EDC tasks. You have about 125,000 stock thickness on the blade, meaning it's not super thick to start with. Carries reasonable thickness out to the tip, making it not a delicate tip, but one that can certainly get some puncture tasks done. Extremely slicey behind the edge. Beautiful stonewash finish, incredibly easy to manipulate in terms of the thumb stud deployment, whether you want to do the reverse flick or a standard flick or whatever. This axis lock is actually called the Able lock for Hog Ritter. By the way, this is a KnifeWorks exclusive. People always ask me where I got this. This is easier to manipulate than some of the Benchmades that I've handled. It has this drop shut action, but it also has never developed any sort of blade play up, down, left, or right. I love that. I also love how that thing looks in there. Everything looks great. Fit and finish on this thing is excellent. I love this star pattern, this multi-directional texturing that they've got going on. That coupled with the fact that it's contoured, and this pocket clip is just amazing. This deep carry clip. It's a very comfortable, very lightweight knife, and even on the inside, we still have countersunk cartridge liners. We've got a pillar construction making it easy to clean. So many positives. One of the only things I don't like about this knife, actually, no, I'm sorry. The only thing I was going to complain about the screws, and I remembered on the Hog Ritter, they actually use a larger size than the teeny tiny size that I don't like. Just ever so slightly larger, making it easy to take apart if I wanted to. The only thing that causes me a little bit of concern is the fact that it still runs on Omega springs, but I haven't had a problem yet. This is absolutely an excellent, excellent knife to carry. The only thing gunning for its spot, honestly, right now, is the Para 3. I carry this thing at the moment a little more often than this one, but overall for the year, the Hog Ritter has been carried more than the Para 3. Okay, let's move on to the number 1 spot. I'm sure you guys are like, it's one of 2 knives. Well, the number 1 spot for my list goes to the Spyderco Jamming, and it is strongly in that place. Its only competition might be the Para 3, but I'd say it's pretty safe at the moment. The Spyderco Jamming is a culmination of all different things, all the things that I like or that I look for in a pocket knife. It's got a nice, robust, tall blade that's plenty durable for hard use tasks, but also gets thin enough to do some of my more delicate slicing tasks. It has a beautiful stonewash finish, CBM S30V, which is a great steel for EDC. It's got a very accessible thumb hole, making it easy and very, very satisfying to use that thumb hole. The weight of this blade and the combination with the compression lock just make it, it's so good. On top of that, this is my favorite ergonomic knife that exists. This position here, choking up behind the blade, is fantastic. Moving down here, this is fantastic. The scales are contoured. The hardware is easy to get to. The screws back here are that nice large size that I like. The pocket clip is great. Not a deep carry, but it's great. It's easy to manipulate. The blade will swing down or sort of swing shut if I want it to. It's very easy to open and close. It's just amazing. It's such a fantastic knife and very deserving of my number 1 spot. Guys, that has been my top 10 most carried knives of 2019. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do of course have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, as YouTube is showing you right now. So check those out, and if you enjoy all that content, you can subscribe to my channel by clicking on that little metal complex logo right there. I'd greatly appreciate it. There's definitely more content coming. Thanks again for watching, and have a great day.